What's up, guys? It's Austin Rutherford back again. Today we're talking about how to fill out a purchase and sale agreement with the seller. I know when I first got started in the business, I was very nervous about this because I've never filled out a form before. So we're going to go through and we're going to break down all the terms and conditions so you can understand what it means. And we're going to fill it out so you can have a real life example of it. And make sure you hang out to the end because we're going to be giving you two things. The first thing, we're going to be giving you a copy of our purchase and sale agreement. So make sure you hang around till the end to see that. And number two, I'm going to show you how to fill it out online so you can do this virtually. So, attorneys always got to have me throw this in there. I'm not a legal attorney. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financials advisor. I'm not any of those things. So, make sure you do business on your own accord. But to get things started, so you got to understand there's contract law for each state. So each state is a little bit different. So what I tell you about what we do here in Ohio might be a little different from elsewhere. So make sure that you do get a guide to make sure you're staying within whatever those guidelines are in your state. And then there's kind of two types of contracts on the purchase and sale agreement side. If you're marketing yourself, if you are a wholesaler direct marketing to sellers and there's no realtor involved, you normally use your own purchase and sale agreement. Again, you can get mine at the end of this video. So when you direct to a seller, that is something that you can do. You can use your own purchase and sale agreement. 9 times out of 10, when you're negotiating maybe with the seller or maybe when the property is listed online through a realtor, they're going to want to use the Board of Realtors contract. So the Board of Realtors contract is a contract that's like 14 pages here in Ohio. Our contract's 2 pages, so 14 pages versus 2 pages. And it just spells out a lot more of what we're going through in a lot more detail. So if you're dealing with a seller that has a realtor and or you're buying something off the MLS, the multiple listing service, you'll usually have to use the Board of Realtors contract. If you're doing something for yourself, going direct to the seller, you can use your own purchase and sale agreement. That's what we got right here. So once you start driving leads and marketing to sellers, you'll start getting phone calls coming in. And then once you start getting those phone calls, you'll evaluate the properties. And let's say you come to an agreement with the seller. You come to an agreement on the price with the seller. Now comes the fun part. Now you have to write a purchase and sale agreement. This is where the nerves can come in. This is where you can start getting scared because now it's getting real. I remember my first contract, my first property that I put in contract, I could not sleep at night. I was like, oh man, am I screwing up? Is this the deal of a lifetime? Why didn't somebody else buy this? Am I overpaying? Am I gonna lose money? All the nerves will set in at that point. So hopefully this brings some clarity to, understanding a purchase and sale agreement and understanding and being able to explain to the seller what the purchase and sale agreement means. And in our purchase and sale agreement, it benefits us, the buyer, a lot more than it does the seller, because when you're buying a property, you want the most favorable terms as possible. It doesn't take advantage of anybody. It just gives you the timelines that you need and the access to the property that you need to be able to make the proper decision. So once we get through this, you'll understand a lot more what this is and how it works. And you'll understand how to have the right terms in there to protect you as the buyer. So like I mentioned, there's 2 bonuses you're going to get at the end of this. One, you're going to see how to do it virtually. So you don't have to take a hard copy and give it to someone. And you don't have to email them a PDF, have them print it out, sign it, scan it, and send it back. There's e-signatures, online signatures, and there's a lot of different platforms you can do this on. You can get an account with .loop.com, you can get an account with writesignature.com, you can get an account with DocuSign.com. All those platforms are platforms that you can upload PDFs and then fill in the blanks with the name and the address and the property address and the purchase price, and you can fill in those blanks and then add signature lines for the buyer and the seller, and you can email them a live version of that and they can review it right there and then click sign now and sign the agreement. And then as soon as it's signed, you'll get a confirmation that it was signed and they'll get a confirmation that it was signed, and you will both get copies of fully signed and executed documents. So again, it takes the paper out of the deal. How we do it is we have an account with writesignature.com and we use our Podio platform, which is our CRM. And inside of that platform, it automatically generates these purchase and sale agreements and sends them to the seller for signature. So I'll give you a quick breakdown of this. Once you get going in the business, start making some money, this streamlines things and makes a lot of sense. And I'd highly recommend something like this. But here's the lead. You know, we got the seller name, Billy Joe. We got Joe at joe.com. We got the property address here. So this is how we get all of our information. This is how we track our whole CRM and everything. But down here, when someone does come to an agreement, if there's a second seller on this property, you can put in, you know, seller Jane, put her email, jane@jane.com. And if there's not a second one, you just leave those blank. And then you put in the parcel number, you put in the offer amount, you put in the buyer's name, whoever's buying the property, you as an individual or the LLC, you put the title company, and then you put in the earnest money deposit, you know, $500, and then any other terms and conditions, you know, buyer and seller agree to blank, whatever other terms and conditions, and then closing costs are paid in full by buyer. And you fill that out and you put, boom, generate contract. Scroll to the bottom, boom. So there's a generated purchase and sale agreement, and it has all the terms and conditions in here. It has a buyer, it has a seller, it has a purchase price, it has the earnest money deposit, and it has the signature lines. So this is the PDF version. So you look at this, make sure everything aligned properly, and then you click, boom, e-signature. Click this button and it automatically sends to the seller and it automatically sends to the buyer. Everybody signs, and then it comes back into our Podio fully executed and sends to the seller a fully executed document as well. So that's how you can do it virtually. You can do it, again, Right Signature, DocuSign, Dotloop, any of those platforms. We tied our Right Signature account into our Podio account, so it can be done very, very quickly right there on the phone. So again, this is what we're going over. So right here is the purchase and sales agreement. This is just in a Word document, so we're gonna go through and kind of fill this out. But what this means at the top, this is the date. This agreement is made, whatever the date is, that's what you're putting right there. And then by in between blank called sellers. The seller is whoever's on title on the auditor. So you put their name here, seller. Buyer is right here and called buyer. So this is you, who is the buyer. It can be you as an individual. It can be you as a company. It can be whoever's buying the property. So we use an LLC, so blankety blank LLC, blank LLC. And then what we have in ours, so technically by law, every contract is assignable as long as it does not specifically state that it is not assignable. But we like to make it more clear. Again, speak to your attorney, speak to your title company on this. But we say blank LLC and or assigns. So that means that gives you specific statement that you're allowed to assign it to an end buyer, to another buyer. And sometimes you'll get a question from a seller like, what does this and or assigns means? For us, you know, we have multiple LLCs that we buy different properties in. If we're doing new construction, if we're doing rehabs, if we're doing rental properties. So we just say, hey, you know, we have a lot of different business models. So this just allows us to assign it to the correct LLC that we're purchasing the property in. So that's what the top portion of this agreement looks like. You got to say the property that you're looking to purchase. So this is like 123 East Main Street, whatever the address is. And then this is the parcel number directly from the auditor. So this is the information you pulled directly from the auditor site. And then right at the top, you know, us as investors, usually ourselves, we're buying this as is. So right here, in case the seller has any questions, it says, boom, we're buying it in as is condition. The description includes any windows, floor coverings, built-in appliances, draperies. So basically they can't tear the house up when they leave. So that's what this stands for. So then down to the fun part. So the purchase price, whatever you guys agree to the purchase price, let's call it $100,000. So $100,000 purchase price. Earnest money deposit. So what does earnest money deposit mean? Earnest money deposit, when you go into an agreement with the seller and you say, hey, you know, I'm gonna put up $500, $100, $1,000 of earnest money deposit to show my good faith in purchasing the property. So if you abide by the agreement and close, it's part of the purchase price. If you abide by the agreement and do not close because due to an inspection failure or something, then you get that money back if it's within the agreement, which we're going to finish here. If you do not abide by the agreement and do not close, then that is something that the seller gets to keep, you know, for wasting their time. And again, we're going to get into what those mean. We usually put $500 to $1,000. I know some people who put $100 and I know some people who put $3,000. And then the total price is still $100,000. And that is part of the $100,000. Right here, it states that earnest money is included in total purchase price. So then the terms and conditions. So closing costs, attorney's fees, title fees are all to be paid by the buyer. So what that means, usually when we negotiate with the seller, we say the benefit of working with us is that we pay all closing fees, all title costs, there's no realtor fees involved. So that usually helps you get a lower price. So we're stating that we're the ones actually paying those closing costs. Number two is any taxes, liens, encumbrances, mortgages are paid by the seller. So if the seller owes a mortgage on the house or a second mortgage or a home equity line of credit or an IRS lien or a tax lien, any money's owed on the property, a water bill, anything that's owed on the water bill, that's something that the seller pays. So we just say, we take care of all expenses on the property. Our offer is net to you minus anything that you owe on the property. So that's what that means. And then number three, seller and buyer will set closing to be as soon as possible for all parties, but not later than 30 calendar days after the date of ratification. So what that means is that once this is signed, you have to close the property within 30 days. So you can change that number. You can put 10 days, you can put 60 days, you can put however many days in there that you want. Another, kind of trick here to maybe buy you some more time, you can put business days. So business days will give you a little bit more time. This just means title report and survey. Basically just means that the title has to come back clear. If it does not come back clear and we're working together to get the payoff on the property, to clear the title on the property, if it goes past those 30 days, this automatically extends another 30 days. So you have time to clear the title on the property. And then number five, this is something that my attorney told me to put in here. It's not always necessary, but I like to err on the side of caution. But basically this states that we are an investment company and we're buying it for a profit and we're making money on the deal. So if you're wholesaling property, nobody can claim that they didn't know you were wholesaling the property or making money on the deal. Again, this is my attorney's suggestion. I used to not do it. I put it in here now just to have it, but this is something that you have to decide if you want to keep it in your contract or not. Number six, property is being sold as is, where is, with all defects and condition. So basically, again, this is just reiterating again that we're buying the property in its as is condition. And then earnest money to be held with the title company. So whoever you decide to close with, that's who holds the earnest money deposit. So you just write the title company in right here. And then earnest money non-refundable to buyer unless title is non-conveyable or seller is not available to close within the time period of this contract, or if buyer is not satisfied with the result of the inspections. Again, so what that means is that if the seller does not close or we do not close due to an inspection failure, we get that money back. If we get all the way to the day of closing and tell them everything's good to go and pull out at the last minute and not close, then they get to keep that earnest money deposit. Here's your inspection contingency. So if inspection does not pass buyer standards, buyer may terminate this agreement by written notice to seller within 15 days of ratification of this agreement, in which the earnest money shall be refunded to the buyer. So what that means is from the day you go into contract to purchase the property, you have 15 days to do your inspection on the property. So you send your inspectors out to the property, you send your contractors out to the property. If you're wholesaling this deal, you can send your buyers out to the property and make sure that the property's in the condition that you thought it was in and in the condition that it needs to be in to be able to afford to pay the price that you agreed to pay. Like for us, we get these contracts over the phone. So the seller describes to us what the condition of the property looks like, and then we determine the repairs based on that phone conversation and then make an offer. So if we get to the property and the house needs a lot more work than what the seller described, then our price will be too high. So this is what gives us the 15 days to determine that. And if the price is too high because it needs too much work, we have two options. You can go back to the seller and say, hey seller, unfortunately you told us X, the property actually looked like Z. We have to reduce our purchase price to blank amount. Or you can say, hey, this property is absolutely destroyed. It's not profitable at this point. We're going to have to pull out of the deal. And then at that time, you give them written notice and then you get your earnest money deposit back. This is just a disclosure for me. If you are a licensed real estate agent, especially in the state of Ohio, I don't know about every other state, but you have to disclose that in every transaction. So this is just a quick disclosure in here. Seller to provide buyer with permission to access the property for purposes of conducting inspections, bids, contractors, designers within a reasonable notice from buyer to seller. If property is vacant, seller should provide buyer with a key to access property specifically for the reasons above. Key shall be provided on date of ratification. So if the property is vacant, we want a lockbox on the property so we can go to the property and inspect it and walk through it and confirm the condition of it. Now here it says, if vacant represents that the property is currently not under lease or the property is vacant, the buyer will be given sole occupancy at closing. If it's tenant occupied, seller will do their best to have tenants comply with the above requirements. and seller shall give buyer the ability to work directly with tenants regarding complying with these access requirements. So sometimes when you're negotiating a deal, the seller and the buyer don't have the proper communication. So what this is saying is that they'll just let us talk to the tenant to confirm walkthroughs. So sometimes we'll confirm walkthroughs as if we're an insurance agent, as if we were a contractor to get into the property to inspect it. Some sellers won't agree with this, which is fine. You know, you can take it out of the agreement, but we just try to make it as simple as possible for everybody. And then last thing, if owner occupied, seller provides to give access to the property as needed with a reasonable notice from buyer to seller. So that's the inspection clauses in there. The next thing is any fixtures, furniture, fixtures, attachments, and located in and around the property not removed within 1 day of closing, then become property of the owner of you. So I've had properties where I purchased before and they left a lot of stuff behind in the house, because again, that's something that we offered to them. Hey, you know, you don't even have to clean the house out. Then we bought the house and I cleaned the entire house out with dumpsters, and they came back looking for an item and they were mad at me for throwing the articles away. So this just specifically states, hey, take everything you want, anything you don't want, I now own, and then I can throw it away. All appliances to remain with the property and becomes buyer's properties. We bought houses where suddenly all the, you know, the $4,000 appliance package is suddenly gone because the seller took it. So this just states that the appliances are part of the purchase. If this agreement is not signed by the seller within 1 hour of sending this agreement is voided. So we do our business all over the phone. So we'll email them an agreement over the phone. They have to sign it while we're there on the phone. If not, we can't have hundreds of offers sitting out there, so it voids within an hour, and this can be a negotiation tactic as well. Hey, you know, I understand you want to think about it, but I can't leave this open for more than an hour because we have other offers on the table, and we need to be able to move these funds to the right property. So that's all that does. If this property is tenant occupied, buyer and seller agree to credit buyer a security deposit of the equivalent of the monthly rent for the property. So if it's rented and it's currently occupied, then we get a credit for the earnest security deposit of the tenant at closing and prorated rents. And then any other terms and conditions. So, you know, you can add in, you know, buyer and seller agree that seller gets a 7-day leaseback period, or buyer and seller agree that part of this purchase includes, you know, the car and the white Chevy Malibu in the garage. So I've actually bought a house and got a free $7,000 motorcycle along with it. So if you're walking through the house and you come up with anything extra that you want, that's what goes in the other terms and conditions. And then once all that's done, once you have the conversation with the seller, now you go down here and sign. You need all parties to sign. If there's 2 people on title, you need 2 people to sign it. And then you need to sign it as a buyer as well. And then we deliver a copy to the seller, and then we keep a copy for ourselves. And then just keep in mind here, the days and the timelines that are in here, 15-day inspection period, 30-day closing timeline, those are all days that have to be followed. So for example, let's say you're inspecting the property for 15 days, and on the 16th day, you decide that you no longer want to go through with the purchase of the property, and you notify the seller that, hey, you know, unfortunately the condition of the inspection did not fit our standards. We're going to have to, you know, not move forward with the deal. If you did it on the 16th day, you're in default of the contract, so they would be able to keep that $500 earnest money deposit. If you do it on the 14th day before your expiration runs out and you give them that notice, then you get that $500 earnest money deposit back. So you have to stay in line with the terms of the agreement and the dates of the agreement. So that's what the process looks like, filling out a purchase and sale agreement, and you know how to understand what you're doing. And a lot of times you'll give them this purchase and sale agreement and they'll have questions. Well, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? So hopefully that gives some clarity as to what it means and how to explain it to a seller. And then lastly, like I told you, you will get a copy of our purchase and sale agreements. Hit the link in the description below to get yourself a copy of it. Definitely let me know your thoughts. I hope this added a lot of clarity to this, because I know I needed help when I first got started. So if you got any questions, comments, drop them below, get back to them. And there's another video on assignment agreements, so make sure you check that one out as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get all of our videos in the future, and we'll talk with you soon. Appreciate you being here.